All right, everybody. Thanks again for joining the Cognition School Podcast. I'm Satoshi Takano. We're here at our ReactForge location here in Vaughan. And today we have a very, very special guest. We have Jeff Kyrzakos, Associate Coach of the Kitchener Rangers and Assistant GM of the Kitchener Rangers as well. So welcome to the podcast, Jeff.
Thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
Awesome. So obviously you're kind of coming into the tail end of your regular season. What's it like right now for the Rangers guys right now?
Yeah, I mean, we're just trying to make sure our process is good and, ramp it up for the playoffs. We have 7 games left, and we're fairly locked into our spot in the standings. So it's more about we're trying to get everyone in right now. So we've been rotating guys in and out of the lineup, and pairing that with maybe trying to get guys a little bit of rest and also ensuring our process is good on the ice. So, it'll be an interesting last few weeks here.
Yeah, it's definitely a blessing, obviously, to be in the position that you're in, but it's also time to kind of think about your strategy going forward too.
Yeah, no question. I mean, it's good and bad. We just went through a really tough part of our schedule where we had 15 games in 32 days, and conversely, now we have some, just simple 2-game weekends where we're going to be able to get some good practice time in for the first time in probably 5 weeks. So, we're looking forward to that, and hopefully our guys we can get their bodies to a spot where they're rested and feeling good and ready to go.
Yeah, exciting times. So I just wanted to, maybe touch on a few things because our audience is kind of a mix of players as well as parents and coaches. So I wanted to kind of touch on a couple of things in different areas. So first of all, tell us a little bit about your playing career as well for the folks that aren't familiar with your background.
Yeah, so I was one of the few guys who, before the rule change, played both NCAA and OHL. So I went to St. Mike's, played AAA growing up. Played all 7 years for the Mississauga Reps, and then went to St. Mike's, played for the Buzzers, and ended up getting a scholarship to Western Michigan. I was there for 1 year and ended up leaving to come back and play in the OHL. I played a season and a half, in Sound before playing mostly in the East Coast League for about 7 years, and then I got into coaching after that.
That's awesome. So, so the rule wasn't in there before when you were playing?
Well, no. So the rule back then obviously was the same as it always was in terms of once you played major junior, you couldn't go to NCAA. So right. I was one of the rare guys who went to the NCAA and left and came back, and so I was able to do both, kind of the reverse way, I guess. So.
Yeah. And how did you enjoy your OHL career?
It was awesome. For me, I kind of, and it's nothing against school, but it's something where I wish I kind of had played 4 or 5 years instead of a year and a half. But I thoroughly enjoyed my time in the OHL.
Yeah, and from a playing style point of view, like how would you categorize your playing style back then?
My playing style, I would say, kind of on the power forward end of things in terms of, I love to be physical and get in the mix, but I love living around the net and scoring goals and making plays. So hopefully a little bit of everything is what my coaches would say.
Yeah, for sure. That's awesome. And as far as your playing career, then transitioning to coaching, I guess the first question is, what made you kind of transition to that? And was there something when you were playing in the East Coast and playing pro where you thought, what, maybe coaching might be a road for me?
I honestly had thought about it much earlier than that, probably in junior. I thought it was something that would fit me post playing, and I try to take you take pieces from every coach you have on your way through, things you like, things you would do different. and utilize it when you start coaching. For me, it's a really easy transition to when you've only played hockey your whole life. The day you decide to stop playing, it can be a scary time for guys. And I took almost a full year away from the game, but um, and I kind of always intended to do that, but I knew I always wanted to have a life in hockey, so coaching seemed like a natural transition.
And where was your first coaching gig there after you transitioned?
It was at St. Mike's, so I went back to the Buzzers and spent a year there coaching, and then I helped a buddy out too with a minor midget team. I had the 2000 Toronto Red Wings, some pretty good players on that team. Barrett Hayton was one of them, and then we had lots of other guys who were drafted to OHL, a couple more NHL picks off that team. And then from there, I ended up in Mississauga with the Steelheads, where I spent 7 years.
Yeah. And as far as your coaching style is concerned, what's kind of like your philosophy, considering you learned everything growing up?
I mean, I think you're always evolving as a coach. The game changes. Players certainly have changed too. So for me, the biggest thing in coaching, I mean, obviously X's and O's are important, but I think you can win with a bunch of different styles of play, and many different systems. It's about getting buy-in from your players. But coaching nowadays is more about managing people than it is anything else. So I think your relationships with players and your ability to communicate is first and foremost, and then your ability to develop players and get the most out of them. So in game is one thing, but how they train and how they see their strengths and deficiencies is huge. And I firmly believe that the strengths of some of the best players in the world and the best players in our league, all the best guys, their ability to self-evaluate is there. They know what they're deficient in and where they have to get better. And for me, we've seen great improvements in some guys who are willing to go down that road and work on things that they need to get better at to be pros or be good players in our league. So we've seen many examples. A couple of them work with you for sure. And that's where maybe we helped show them that they had some deficiencies in areas where they weren't seeing things or weren't processing as fast as they could. And it's a credit to those guys. To be honest, it's a tough thing to be a teenager and admit that you have some faults in your game. And not only admitting you have faults, but be able to see accurately where your strengths are, and if you can pair all that stuff together and fix some things or get better at things, you can be a pretty good player. And so for me, even scouting the U16s, we talk to guys and we interview guys, and the guys who can accurately describe their game and what they're good at and what they need to get better at, for me, are the most exciting guys in terms of wanting to pick.
Yeah, that's almost like a job interview, right? What are your strengths and what are your weaknesses? And it can't be some generic answer.
Yeah, no question. I think it's even with players in our league. We've had really good players, and it's sometimes they get focused on all the wrong things, or they're extremely point focused, or they equate points with playing well, and that's just not the case in a coach's reality. A lot of the time. So for us, we've called guys in after games or the next day and said, what do you think of your game? And they might have had a couple points. And I thought it was pretty good. And meanwhile, we did not think they were very good. So for us to be able to take that next step and be an NHL player or a good pro player, you have to be able to sit there after a game and say, yeah, I was pretty good today, or I have a lot better. I could do this better, or I struggled here. So self-evaluation is critical, and I find a lot of these kids struggle at it, and I don't know I don't know whether that's a parental thing or, I have no idea. Maybe they're, all the way up. They keep getting told how good they are, and it's okay to tell your kid in a constructive way, not a negative way, but in a constructive way. Hey, you did this, and this well, but you can get better at this, and this. So they're always looking to evolve and improve their game.
Yeah, no, I think that's important because I think any team, including yourselves, like you're trying to develop the kids, but you're also trying to win games. So how do you balance those two pieces together? Obviously, development comes from either the self-realization or actualization, where you said, oh, like you think you could help these kids in a certain way, help them develop, but then at the same time, you want them to, immediately utilize those tips and hopefully win games. So how do you kind of balance between those two?
Yeah, I mean, as a coach, you have to give your players some rope, right? They can't be afraid to make mistakes. So, certainly our philosophy in Kitchener, we don't want guys making the same mistake over and over again. But at the end of the day, we know it's a game of mistakes. We know they're going to make mistakes. Our best players are going to make mistakes every game. For us, it's if they're competing and they're working hard and they're trying to do the right things and they make mistakes, we can live with that every single game. It's for us where we might get annoyed as coaches is if they're casual or they're sleepwalking their way through games or they're not competing and then they're making mistakes. That for us is when we kind of get irritated. So I really think the ability to have guys go out and play a little freely. Yes, they know our systems, they know what we want to do, but the ability for them to know that, hey, maybe I made a mistake there, but I'm not going to be stapled to the bench because of it. Really allows guys to develop in terms of being able to go out and try and implement things that you're trying to change in their game or they're trying to add to their game.
Mm-hmm. And as far as the development goes, obviously you're trying to prepare them for the next level when they make it to the NHL. Like, what would be some of the things that you would be kind of trying to implement in order to prepare them for that next level?
Well, I mean, the vast majority of these players are the best players on their team coming into our league. So offensively, there's always things to work on, but rarely that's the red flag in their game. It's always the 200-foot game. And even guys come into our league, and I know 16-year-olds come in and they sit there and they go, yeah, if I can score and put up some points, I'll stay in the lamp and I'm going to play lots of minutes. And that it couldn't be further from the truth. It's if we can put them on the ice and trust them in all situations, they're going to play lots. They're going to play tons, and we don't really care about age at that point. But we have guys who are older who put up lots of points, and that's their job. And usually, a young player coming in, they can provide secondary scoring, but realistically, what you need to put into your game to become a pro is you got to be detailed on the defensive side of the puck, and you got to be reliable, and your coaches have to trust you when they put you on the ice. So putting that into guys' games, especially elite offensive guys who come into our league, adding that 200-foot piece to their game, and I think it gets thrown around a lot, and 9 out of 10 guys will say they want to be a 200-foot player when they come into a meeting with us for the OHL draft. There's a difference between saying it and actually doing it. So, you watch some of the top guys in the National Hockey League at it, guys like Barkov and, before he retired, Bergeron, it's like those are 200-foot players. So putting those details in, so when they finish in our league and they go to the American League or the National Hockey League, their coaches feel comfortable putting them on the ice in 5-on-5 situations to, just to start off with before you talk about anything else. Can we put this guy on 5-on-5 and trust him? Can we put him on for a D zone start and trust him? And I think those are huge pieces of development.
Yeah. What are your thoughts about the Four Nations tournament?
It was pretty good. It was entertaining. It was good hockey. I mean, the guys, really laid it on the line, which was impressive. And I think that's always going to happen when you get country versus country. It was certainly terrific hockey to watch, and hopefully they can. I mean, it looks like they're going to expand on it, and getting more nations involved would be outstanding. I think the Czechs are definitely a team that should be there, and the political situation aside, it'd be great to see the Russians there.
Yeah.
Because then it's truly best on best in the world. And then, you look at the Olympics, there's other countries who are certainly deserve to be there. Whether or not they're going to finish high in the standings or not, it's a different story. But there's some pretty good hockey nations elsewhere that it'd just be good to have, 6 or 8 teams in that tournament.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, and back to your point about playing on the defensive side of the puck, I think that was a very evident in all those games, right? That if you couldn't be defensive and gain possession, there's nothing else you can do.
Yeah, I mean, those are some of the best players in the world offensively, and they gave up very little. The chances were, watch the Canada-U.S. games. It's like there was not much available there. Tight games, fast, and that's the one thing you notice is you have to be able to play this game fast and think this game fast. If you can't, you're just not. You're not on the elite level. You're on a different level.
Yeah.
Some of those games are some of the fastest games that have ever been played.
Yeah, yeah. And as far as obviously, there's kids of different sizes that are playing today. What's kind of like your thoughts on the importance of size and obviously you were a physical player growing up, but has that changed over the time that you've been kind of coaching as well?
Yeah, I mean the game evolves and it's kind of cyclical. Where there'll be a skill focus and then there'll be a physicality focus, and a lot of the best teams have a nice blend of both. I don't think size is an impediment unless you're extra small. I think guys can play at any level if they're strong. At their kind of height and weight, and so functionally strong and strong in the right areas through their core, and the ability to be balanced. And I think guys can play if they're smart, right? So if you're a small guy, if you can get into guys' hands and get body position on guys, you can really eliminate the size advantage the other guy has by putting yourself in the right spots on the ice. Conversely, if you're a big guy, the ability to use your frame and maybe intimidate a little bit physically is a big key for guys. So, I think that we're starting to see guys. It used to be in the past you get these big guys and they couldn't move, and we're seeing some guys who are really big now who have great hands on them and can really move and make plays. And that's kind of the evolution of our game. But those guys are really they're kind of wild cards, and they're always going to have success because a bigger size does bring you a lot of advantages if you're mobile with it. So we have a guy on our team who's he got drafted last year. He just signed a couple days ago with Vegas, and he's a big guy who's got great hands for a big guy and can move well, and he'll play with an edge, and those are all things that work very well for him. But at the end of the day, we have guys who are sub 6 feet who are very important to our hockey club too. So it's about how you play and what if you recognize your size and strength and where it's at, you got to play a certain way to be effective.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I look at some of the guys on the wings as well, and looking at different players, and there's all sorts of different sizes, and they all have a role. And so I agree with you that that you have your big guys like your Elmer Soderblums to Alex DeBrinkets, and they all have a different value that they bring to the table. So I definitely agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah, I know, and I think a guy like DeBrincat knows, he knows his size, and there's if you watch him play, he's kind of good at getting off the wall and not getting pinned down to spots, and he'll get into defenders' hands, and he'll cut their hands. So they can't drive him into the wall. It's like now they're on the wrong side of him and they're chasing him. He's really good at recognizing where the pressure's coming from, and his cutbacks are great. And obviously he's got that quick elite release from a shooting standpoint. He doesn't need much time and space to score goals, but that's a guy who, from his time in the OHL, has recognized, what will make him successful.
Yeah, and as a coach of those types of players, like you're almost like a chess player at that point. Like you're trying to put together the right individual on a particular line. Would you say?
Yeah, I mean, you're looking for a bunch of different components that work well, and a lot of times you find pairs of guys that work well, and you're trying to mix and match in a third guy that goes with that line. But obviously, you're looking for guys who are defensively responsible, guys who can get on pucks, guys who can make plays, and you're trying to blend all that together to have a line that can go out and be successful at both ends of the rink.
Yeah, yeah. And as far as the draft coming up for the OHL this year, I know you touched a little bit on development and coming in as a U16 and kind of a rookie to the team. Any kind of advice that you could give to those people, those kids that are kind of coming in and breaking into the league?
Yeah, I mean, for us, we watch them lots, so we know a lot of what their game's about. Certainly, I think they underestimate how important their body language is as a U16 player, because it tells us a lot about what kind of teammate they are and what kind of person they are, just how they react to things, how they react to adversity, or that's a huge piece for us. And then obviously the skill and the skating and the hockey sense are kind of three key pieces for the on ice stuff, and like I mentioned, the ability for us to be able to trust players at 16 is key. We know they can score. Like we're not, we've seen them play more times than they know, so we know what their strengths are. And I think the ability for guys to be patient and develop is key. So for us, it's at the end of the day, it's I think coming into our league, a lot of times people say just get through your 16-year-old year. I've had guys in the past, like we had Owen Tippett in Mississauga, and he played 6 minutes a night as a 16-year-old, and 17-year-old he scored 44 goals and went 10th overall to Florida. So it's not, a lot of guys want immediate success, and sometimes it's about being patient and recognizing there's a process, and the guys, the coaches and management in place usually have a pretty good idea what they're doing. So
Yeah, definitely. Patience is something that our young folks need to kind of understand, and they might have been superstars as they were growing up and kind of dominating the league that they're in, but at the next level, it's this whole different level of hockey. And so and obviously, like if they were not a fit for the roster for this year or this coming year, and they're maybe playing junior A or junior B, and not to get um, down on themselves for doing that, right?
yeah, I think you're going to see, especially with the rule change, I think you're going to see next year there'll be a fair amount of teams who might not have an 09 on their roster next year. There'll be a lot of guys playing junior A or junior B, including some first round picks. So I think recognizing there's a process there, and maybe the ability to play lots in junior A and be more of a go-to guy than be a fourth line guy who's getting 7 to 10 minutes a night in the OHL. There's obviously advantages to being around the big team and practicing and all that stuff. But there's also advantages to playing lots and, being more of a go-to guy, and then coming in at 17. We've seen lots of examples with it in our league. Cowan and Bonk in London, they played their 16-year-old year in junior B. And, I think guys don't need to be in such a rush, especially now with the NCAA change. Like, you can play 4 or 5 years in our league, and then you can go play in the NCAA. And so you have a much longer path to develop and become pro ready. And for the elite guys, even them, it's, the top of the top are going to be in our league next year, no question. But for the guys who are really good players, playing 16-year-old in junior A or junior B, it doesn't preclude you from being drafted really high in the NHL draft a year later. We've seen lots of examples of that, and it doesn't separate you from maybe playing in the NHL at an early age. So every guy's path's different. I think that's the biggest thing to recognize is every single player's path is different, and every organization is different. So depending on where you get picked, it might be the best play for you to be in the OHL at 16, or it might be something where it's beneficial for you to go play junior A. So there's so many factors that go into it, and there's no clear answer for any given player.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a different path for everybody, and I think people are also, again, this goes back to patience, because I've seen kids that were kind of skinny and lanky at 16, and then 2, 3, 4 years later, they look like a whole different person, and they're much taller, and they're growing, and so I think the element of patience is definitely a key aspect. As far as the environment, you talked a little bit about that as well. How they grow up, and from a parenting point of view, any kind of trends that you see where the kids are more successful if the parents kind of are a little bit more either engaged or a little bit distant? Like, what's kind of like the right thing that you've seen? So I wouldn't say right, but what's the trend that you've seen with some of your successful players and how they're brought up?
I think, and this is, I'd be careful with what I say here, but I think, given a hockey player who we view is relatively equal, 2 players we view relatively equal, if we can take a small town kid over a big city kid, we're going to do it, because they're going to be more humble and down to earth, and they're going to be more aligned with being able to handle some adversity in their life. And I think one of the biggest problems is we get a lot of kids who come in and their parents have literally done everything for them. They've always been on the best team. They've always had the best stuff. They've always, they have never been allowed to fail. Their mistakes have never been their fault. And then they get to our league, and for the first time in their life, they're not the best player, and they have to handle some adversity. And a lot of them have to learn how to do it on the fly in our league, because they've never been in that position before. So, I mean, my advice to parents is, one, trust the coaches where they're at. Don't be too involved. Don't coach your kid from home. Let him be coached by his coaches. And I think just letting them make some mistakes and fail when it doesn't matter, when they're 9, 10, 11, 12, 15, 16. Let them get into some trouble and make some mistakes and figure their way out of it. You don't have to fix everything for your kids, because those are the players who come into our league, the guys who can are a little mature, and their parents haven't done everything for them. They've had to figure things out a little bit. Those guys kind of hit the ground running. So, you might think you're doing your kid a favor and you want to provide the best for them, but you're not a lot of the times. And it's usually a red flag for us if we look at a guy who's been on 4 teams in the last 5 years in the GTHL. It's like that's a red flag for us, because no situation's been good enough for him, or he's always moving around chasing something different instead of making his own team better. And there's obviously cases where maybe it makes sense to be moving, but usually it's a pretty good indicator that there's some issues there.
It's interesting you say that, because we've seen that here when we're training the kids too, that there's some kids that just come in here and the parents kind of stay in the lounge area over there, and they're just relaxing, doing their work. They don't even walk into this space to even watch what they're doing, and that's an opportunity for us to kind of go get. We could really push them, and there's no added coaching from the sidelines, right? So I find that the kids that are that tend to go further in the future, I find, are the ones where the kids are in charge. They're the ones in charge of their destiny. They're the ones in charge of, what training they get, who they work with, whether they like it or not. If they don't like it, they'll tell the parents and say, you know what, I'm probably, this isn't a good fit for me. So, and I think the parents that I find that have those successful kind of elite kids are the ones that they just want to make sure they're eating right. They want to make sure they're happy, that they're getting their sleep, they're taking their vitamins, and that's it. What happens is on them. So that's a trend that I see here, with a lot of the parents that are here, and the kids like it that way because they feel like they're in charge, as opposed to when the parents are always overbearing and say, you're going to do this and you're going to go here, and I'm talking to all these coaches and blah blah blah, and all of a sudden the kids have no control, right? And that's when I think there's a gap.
I really agree. I think a parent's ability to provide the resources to do everything a player needs to do or wants to do is critical, obviously, and that's. But I think the fine line for parents is providing the resources, and then let your kid be in charge of his development in terms of what he wants to do and how much he wants to get from the game. And it's okay to guide him and talk about the game a little bit. And you're in the car on the way home from the game, you can talk about the game, but be very careful with coaching your kids. Let them be coached by their coaches, and you can say great game, or talk about it on a really basic level. But at the end of the day, provide the resources for your kids. Give them everything they need to make it, but it's up to the kids to want to do it and take those steps and utilize what you're providing for them. And outside of that, I mean, the best parents for us are the ones that we never hear from. So from a minor hockey standpoint, it's like, drop your kids off, let them do their thing. You can cheer them on in the stands, but don't be over involved. Let them, especially as they get older, let them mature, and let the game take on the identity that they want it to be. Not your dream or your identity.
Yeah, for sure. How important do you find is like the mental health of players when they're playing in the OHL?
Yeah, I mean, mental health is something that's important everywhere, but for us, again, this comes back to the same thing. The guys who are mentally the strongest for us are the guys who are. They're really some of the independent guys in our teams. They're guys who I know could probably go home and make their own dinner, and they know how to throw a load of laundry in. Like, it's no coincidence to me that their ability to be independent coincides with their ability to mentally navigate their way through the ups and downs of playing in the OHL and life and school and all that stuff as well. So, allow your kids to develop at a younger age, and they're going to be mentally stronger 99% of the time when it comes to playing in our league. So yeah, it's critically important. Confidence is, the biggest thing in our sport. When you're confident, you can do some amazing things. But no one can give you confidence. People can take it away from you, but at the end of the day, the only person who can make you confident is yourself. So I find guys focus too much on big picture stuff, trying to get their confidence back, and it's really about little things. It's, focus on little things you did well. It's like, am I winning face-offs? Am I getting pucks out? Am I making good little passes? Am I defensively good? Did I throw some big hits? Did I block some shots? Focus on a bunch of little things to get you in a good mind space over, oh gosh, another game where I didn't score a goal. It's like, those little things can get you feeling good about because everyone wants to know they're contributing. Everyone wants to know they're part of a team's success. So I've said this to guys lots, but you score 20 goals in the NHL, you're a pretty good player. You're probably making $4 million a year, and maybe you have a couple multi-goal games in there. So maybe you've scored 18 out of 82 games in the NHL. It's like, okay, well, what are you doing the other 64 games? So the ability to focus on little things and what you're doing well outside of goals and assists can lead to a lot of mental strength in your confidence and being able to be a consistent player. So the guys who, are real wavy with how they play is typically they're focused on, their goals and their assists. And so, yeah, I mean, the mental side and confidence, it all ties into each other, but self-talk is huge. Being able to put yourself in a good frame of mind and know you're contributing to your team in a bunch of different ways is critical to your consistent success.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I think you touched on confidence, and I always tell guys here, like, you can't just get confidence. Like, it doesn't come in a nice little package for you. That you have to. I always say that you have to go through the town of courage first before you get to confidence, because courage is when you'll make all the mistakes and you get beaten up and you have adversity, and how you deal with that. Eventually, you'll get to that place called confidence. And so I always try to tell people, like, even when they're in here, you're going to fall flat on your face. You'll probably do the worst on some of our tests here, but that's our opportunity to learn. The more that you can self-actualize and start to realize, oh, these are areas that I need to work on, then they can dive in. I think, and as far as from a coaching perspective, you want to kind of, yes, you want to show that they have some weaknesses, but then we then have to coach them through that adverse moments, and obviously the rest is up to them. So I definitely agree with the confidence side of things. Just a kind of a last topic, but I wanted to talk a little bit about kind of the hockey sense, because I know you touched on it a little bit at the beginning. What's kind of like your, I wouldn't say definition, but what's your kind of like your views on hockey sense, hockey IQ, and do you use video a lot to be able to identify those things, and what do you do with them after?
Yeah, I mean, hockey sense is massive, especially as the game gets faster. The ability to scan and have information pre-puck touch is critically important to a player's ability to make plays. But the ability to scan without the puck in a defending situation is critical too, in terms of being able to put yourself in the right spots on the ice to defend and be trusted. So hockey sense can be developed, no question. And I know we've had this conversation off pod about I have some theories on just hockey sense and vision, and why it's at probably an all-time low in our game. And I think 20, 30 years ago, I'd say 80, 85% of the guys had pretty good hockey sense. And, I'd say the numbers are almost flipped now. And part of that is I don't think we're training our eyes to be, we're not picking up things in our daily lives. Like, our peripheral vision stinks, and so much of that for me is like the cell phone and tablet era. It's like we're not allowing our eyes to pick up these things. Like, if you're a little kid and you're in the car, and if you're my age or your age, you're looking out the windows and you're observing, you're picking things up, and you're training everything in that peripheral space around you, and you should be able to pick up many details about any 5-second clip in your life, what's around you. And when you're so solely focused on the 8 inches right in front of your face, I think we have a lot of kids who are deficient in terms of their ability to process what's going on around them. So from that standpoint, I think the stuff you do in terms of cognitive development and spatial awareness is massive, because I don't think it's something that's, for years people say, you can't teach hockey sense. Well, you can teach guys spatial awareness, and you can teach guys to be aware of their surroundings and their peripheral happenings. So I think, just I'll do video with a guy, and, I'll pause the video, and I'll get him to kind of turn away from the screen a little bit. And, can he identify where the other 9 guys are on the ice? That's how much is he picking up? Even when we're watching video, is he solely focused on what he's doing or where the puck is? That's the same in game for guys. So I think, we had Adrian Mississauga, a guy who I sent your way last summer, and the maturity in his game from one year to the next has been really impressive. He's scanning and looking and taking in information more than he ever has. And he's having a great season for us. He's leading us in scoring, and I think he's doing things that he never would have done before, and it's going to help him take the next step in his game. But I think it's critically important. And even if you're really good in the hockey sense area, you can get better. You can process faster. You can make quicker decisions. I think cognitive development and spatial awareness, the ability to scan and think the game faster and play faster, is kind of the next frontier in this game in terms of on ice skill development was the last wave, and I also think that's a bit of an impediment on guys' hockey sense. They're very focused on flipping pucks over toys on the ice, when that's not a game situation. So the skills are important, but incorporating them into a hockey situation and a game situation, I think some of the best skills guys in the world who work for NHL teams or on their own, their best traits are the abilities to work on skills within a game setting. So going through an obstacle course and putting a bunch of toys on the ice doesn't mean, parents, that you're spending good money on your son or daughter playing the game. It has to be functional skill to develop not only their skill but the cognitive side of their game.
Yeah, I agree. I think with what Adrian has accomplished here with us too, to be able to scan and be able to see everything around him, and of course he's not a huge player, right? Like he's I think he's about 5'8", 5'9" maybe, but his ability to kind of see things before they happen, based on the information that he's gathering. So when we're in this space, for example, and it's both for when he has a puck and when he doesn't have the puck. Most of the time he doesn't have the puck, but so it's a matter of being able to get in those right areas. We can simulate a lot of the scenarios here. We got tons of space here to kind of simulate and say, okay, if you see this, then go do this. If you see this, then do that. So it's not necessarily going to chase lights at all. It's based on what I saw. Okay, now I'm going to go do something. And so I think by the time he gets the puck, that that 5% of the time that he actually has the puck, he can do something extraordinary with it. And that's the one thing that we take pride in here, where I mean, even if of course when he's got the puck, he's going to do something great. But then when he doesn't have it, what do you look for? We call things like back of helmets. In other words, like nobody sees you. And but that's your opportunity to kind of start sneaking in and start making a move. And so gathering information, both for pre-scan before you touch the puck, but even just reading the play. Where is everybody? Do they know? Where I am? Can I tell what hand the guy is, so then I could be in a position where I can receive the pass? Because I know that when he first came here, he was a right-handed shot, right? Well, he's a right-handed shot. Oh, sorry, left-hander on the right side. So he's on his off wing most of the time, which means he needs to see a lot of things that are on the left side of the ice. But we're also working on both sides to make sure that doesn't matter what position he's in, he can see everything to his left side and everything down the right side as well. And of course, even when the puck is in his feet, because a fast kid like Adrian's gonna, so oftentimes he's gonna have to kind of look for the puck and then make a play. So I think all those pieces are critical for him. Obviously, when he's got it, he can shoot, he can skate fast. But I think that ability to see and make plays is also a critical thing for him.
Yeah, he's. We've seen it. I think you came into Kitchener. I think I showed you a clip on the power play of an entry of him. A year ago, he might have got blown up on that entry, and now a quick little sidestep, and we had a really good entry, and then just last Sunday we were in London, and he scored the OT winner. But watching him get his head up, get to a good spot, scan, pre-touch, he got the puck and he knew he had a lane to the net, and he dropped his head and he took the puck to the net and he scored. But those were all recognition things that for me he's developed. So he was a guy who wasn't entirely gifted in the hockey sense area. Probably through no fault of his own. It's just that's how he came into our league. And he's really, really got better at it. And his recognition is much better, and his ability to play for a guy who was already really fast. His ability to play fast now, with and without the puck, is definitely took off.
Yeah, no, that's great. I'm so glad that we had the opportunity to work with them, and I know there's a couple other guys that we work with from the Rangers as well, and so we're definitely taking that same approach with him. Any kind of last final tips for players as they're developing, hoping to get into the OHL at some point soon?
Yeah, I mean, everyone has a different path and everyone has a different timeline. So don't compare yourself to the guy next to your teammate or the guys on other teams. Your path is unique, and your timeline is unique. I've seen lots of guys come in late or undrafted or early and drafted, and they can all end up in the same or different spots. So if you're picked, great. If you're not picked, Adrian's an example of a guy who wasn't picked, and hockey's working out just fine for him. So stay with it, but also, your ability to continually get better is big, and your ability to honestly and accurately evaluate your game and what you're good at and where you're deficient is big. And then at the end of the day, be a good teammate. We're seeing the value of a good culture in a team setting, and how important it is. And there's too many. I'm trying to use a word that I can use on a podcast. There's too many selfish idiots in the hockey world, and really I don't care how good you are. We don't have time. We don't have place for those types of guys. So be a good teammate, really, and compete. That's a huge thing. We go out and watch games. Is not enough guys have have a good enough engine anymore. Your motor and your engine and your compete is what's going to drive any success you have, and you can't play at our level or beyond if you don't compete the whole time you're on the ice.
Yeah, yeah. Now, sorry, just I want that another question. Do you watch players when they're on the ice and when they're kind of like off ice, like pre-game, like what they're doing as well?
Yeah, we watch everything, and that's we we do more background digging on them than they can ever dream of. Coaches, teachers, people who know them from the past. We'll talk to their teammates. We'll talk to other players in the league about them. It's, we don't want kids who are going to be a negative influence on our culture and the way we do things. So yeah, we watch their habits, no question, in terms of off the ice and on the bench, and what they're willing to put in. But we're looking for good people. We have a team this year who we're obviously having a fairly good year. We don't have a single guy even sniffing the scoring lead in our league. I think our top guy is in the 30s. But we're probably gonna have 11 or 12 guys with 30, 40 plus points. So our all our top players are, we have a bunch of point a game guys, no question. But we're the root of our success is we're a good team. We have some depth, and players can contribute all over our lineup. So being somebody who can fit into that team setting is it's more important than they can ever dream of. So you look at the draft every year, whether it's NHL or OHL, the teams who go the furthest, it's no coincidence that they have the most guys drafted, because teams want winners and they want good people. So you can lead your team in scoring, but if you're out in the first round, it's maybe not as important as a guy who's third or fourth on his team in scoring, but he lifts that trophy over his head at the end of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. I think what I would kind of sum up from that is obviously that the skills are what got you to this point to at least be able to get the attention. The rest is, are you a good human, and are you a good team player? Do you have the characters and traits to compete, and because that will probably last longer and as they develop their career, because skill wise, the rest of just becomes kind of marginal. Like you're not doing like overnight significant changes, but you're as a human being, you want to be able to be kind of that whole package. Like, so in a corporate world, like when I used to hire people, I always used to say hire slow and fire fast, right? Where you want to take as much time as you can to understand all the background, like just like how you're looking at players, right?
Yeah, I mean, like your skill gets you in the door, and your skill is ultimately the separator in the end. But there's two components that your skill becomes irrelevant if you don't. If you're not a good person and you don't compete, your skill is irrelevant. It doesn't matter, and it's not going to be a separator for you. So I think people get solely focused on skill, and if your kid can't fit into the environment of team structure, or he doesn't want to compete all the time, then his skill isn't a separator. I tell guys that all the time. If you're playing a guy and you skate as hard as him and you compete as hard as him and you work as hard as him, now all of a sudden your skill separates you.
Right.
But if you have twice the amount of skill he does, but he competes harder and he works harder than you, then your skill doesn't matter. So, and it's the same from our standpoint, just from that team perspective. You can be as skilled as you want, but if you're a bad teammate, we don't have time for you. You're not going to be on our hockey club very long. So, yeah, I guess draft slow and trade quickly. I don't, for us, we definitely want to do our research on guys, and we want to bring in good kids. And the second we think you're not a good kid, and you don't want to compete, that's when we'll move off you pretty quickly.
Yeah.
But if you, we're also super patient with guys on the other. If you're a good kid and you work hard, and your development is more of a slower path, you'll see us be really patient with you. We'll keep you. We're not going to move off you, and all of a sudden you see guys have success at 18 or 19 or 20 in our league, when they maybe were pretty pedestrian the first couple of years. So.
Yeah, definitely. We saw some of those players even here as well. They were kind of fourth liners, and then next thing you know, it's like, okay, like they're moving on up. So I think patience is patience and work ethic, I think is really what it comes down to for sure.
No question.
Yeah, awesome. Well, Jeff, this has been a fantastic conversation. So I really appreciate you coming on, and I wish you best of luck in the playoffs. We'll definitely connect over the next couple of weeks for sure. But thank you so much for coming on today. I appreciate that.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Okay, thanks again for joining the podcast, and hope to talk to you soon. And best of luck for the rest of the season. Take care. Thanks.
See ya.